你好，你急救。
要起箱啊？
多少？
啊？
多少？
有大的有小的。
有小的。那小的呢？
那个小的10块。那种。
这个？
这个蜡烛也是10块。
啊，那小的？
小的是这种。
哦，这个。
要这个大一点的。
10块。
这10块。好，扫码。
你好, and welcome to Woven Roads with Ma Yan. Ma Yan is my Chinese name, and I'm starting this YouTube channel as a way to celebrate my 20 years in China. And I arrived in Shanghai, I should say, on June 14th, 2005. It's been an incredible 20 years, full of lots of great times, lots of adventures. So for this first video, I thought that I would just tell the story of how and why I came to China. I'm doing this from this beautiful temple. This is called Judy Temple. This temple is actually in my neighborhood in Huacao. Huacao is a village in Minhang district. And I've actually lived in this apartment, the one I'm currently in, for about 4 years. And I've passed by this temple many times, but have actually never gone in. And it's actually kind of rare in my experience to be able to just walk in for free. No charge. I did buy some incense, and I will make some offerings. But it's a beautiful location. Today is kind of a little overcast, a little bit chilly actually. It's strange that at this time of year, normally it's scorching hot. I remember when I first came here, right from the get-go, I was just drenched in sweat, taking about 4 showers every day, and non-stop until I left later that August. So yeah, back to how I got here. I think it all started basically with my grandmother. She was a world traveler. After her husband, my grandfather, passed, she was still in her late 60s, so relatively young. She decided to travel the world. She was also an avid photographer. So when she would travel, she would take photos, and then she would give slideshows at family gatherings. So she had 5 grandchildren. She decided to take them all on a trip of their choice to any location in the world. And my cousin, who was a couple years younger than me, when we saw her slides of Kenya, we both decided that that's where we would like to go. So when I was 16, my cousin was 14, we decided to go on a safari to Kenya with my grandmother. And that was just an eye-opening and just an incredible experience. We also stopped in Amsterdam along the way, so I had my first experience going to Europe. So 你好，你好。
你好，嗨。
我在做一个 vlog。
vlog，我知道。
对。
小红书吗？
啊，不是。
还是抖音
？YouTube。
哦。好吧，我没刷到过那个。嗨。
Yeah. So that experience was, the first time that I'd really left the continental U.S. I had been to Canada, of course. I'm from Rochester, New York, so 2 hours from the border. And so that trip to Kenya opened my eyes to just the world outside, and the experience of just being around people from a different culture and being around just the landscape and the climate, the colors, and everything. That was an education in itself, and something that I realized that you can't get from, at that time, books, TV. Nowadays, of course, we have the internet, and we can virtually travel to a lot more places, and we can see them in high definition video. But still, the experience of living in another country is an education in itself. So anyways, when I went to college, I went to St. Lawrence University, which had a Kenya program that was running since 1974. And I was there in the late 80s. So my senior year, I did my first semester in Kenya, and that was an incredible experience as well. I stayed in 4 different homestays. I stayed in Nairobi with a family. I stayed in the western part of Kenya with the Kikuyu tribe. I stayed with the Samburu tribe, which is their nomadic tribe, so I actually stayed in their mud hut with them for a couple of weeks, and then I did a month-long stay in the Masai Mara as part of a study of the animals and the effects of burning on the land. So that was my senior year, and when I graduated, I was a English literature major, music minor, and I had lots of ambitions about exploring. And I didn't necessarily have a plan to live overseas, but I had the itch to travel, and so I decided to go to Japan on the advice of my cousin, because he had been there and he taught English there for a little while. His parents, my aunt and uncle, were actually living there in Japan in the 60s. My uncle was in the Air Force, and he was stationed there for about 3 years, I think. So they made friends with some Japanese people and good, close friends. And I ended up actually staying with one of the families that they'd made friends with when I first got to Japan. And I have to say I had a great time in Japan, but at that time for me, it was a bit much. I was in Tokyo and living first with the family, but then I got my own apartment, and it was a shoebox. So, and I also had, even though I was teaching English and it was a decent job and everything, I had this kind of feeling like I needed to get back to more studies, more music studies. So I went back and practiced for a year, and then got into Berkeley and did a degree there, and then I did my master's at NEC. And then was living in Boston for another 4 years, doing gigs. Ended up doing gigs with some great people, some not only people that I'd gone to school with, but local musicians. I met some of the old timers down in the South Shore of Boston, and ended up just kind of like learning real jazz language from guys who sometimes wouldn't even tell me what the name of the tune was. They would just start playing. I just felt itchy. I felt like Boston was really, the music seems really centered in the schools, it still is. And while there's nothing wrong with that, I had this feeling like, I think a lot of jazz musicians, not only jazz, but musicians, artists, feel like, to really test yourself, you have to go to New York City. So my thought was go to New York City, go back to my hometown, or overseas, maybe Japan. But then I met a couple of people from Shanghai. Zhang Le, whose English name is Carrie. She was studying at NEC at the time, a great singer. And Huang Jianyi, studying at Berkeley at the time, an incredible piano player. Shout out to both of those guys. And I just happened to meet them. I met Carrie on a gig, and they were just, they were telling me, like, Shanghai, there's actually a lot of things going on. I'm like, really? I mean, China was starting to be in the spotlight at that time, so I emailed some people. Carrie had given me some people's contact, and there was a band leader at the Portman Ritz-Carlton who was a jazz club at the time, Jazz Lounge, and he hired me for a month. He offered me the month of July, I think it was. So I booked my ticket June 14th, and I booked a return for early August. Right before I was about to go, he emailed me and said, "Oh, sorry, my bass player actually doesn't want to go on break at that time." So I'm like, okay, great, thanks, bought my ticket already. But then at the same time, two musicians from Boston, Jeremy Udden and Pete Carnegie, they had also met Carrie independently of me, and they had actually booked some gigs at the Jay-Z club that was operational at that time, the one on Fuxing Lu. The legendary one. And so they found out that I was coming, and they didn't know any of the musicians who were here in Shanghai, so they actually asked me to play with them, which I gladly did, and we had a great time. And then immediately after that, from that point that I got there, there was just, a lot of musicians coming, and I was busy every night. Jay-Z Club had just opened in that new location, so I ended up playing there quite a bit. And then just happened to be in the right place at the right time. I got asked to go to Tibet for 3 weeks of that 5-week period that I was in Shanghai. That was a trip sponsored by Budweiser. We played pop music, different venue every night in Lhasa, and we had an incredible time. And so I got back to Shanghai after that Tibet trip, and I just had a few days left before I was going to head back to Boston. So I went back to Boston, I packed up my apartment, and basically just moved to Shanghai with the idea that I'd give it a year or two. And there were steady contracts. There were clubs that actually hired musicians to come over from overseas, put them in apartments. There were hotels, and then even clubs. When I arrived, I moved back in October of 2005, and I landed a steady contract at a club called Number 5, which was 5 on the Bund. It was actually below the ground floor. Our band was called 5 Below. And that was an incredible time. And that was great. So I played that for a few months, and then I moved over to a club called CJW, Cigar, Jazz, and Wine. There's a couple of those in Shanghai. There were a few of them around China. It was a bit more corporate, a bit more slick. A lot of singers coming over from Vegas. And I did that for a few years. It was great, but it was hard work. But that was the gig that I would say that, I got the real experience of. I would say it's kind of like being on a cruise ship on dry land, because it was 6 nights a week. So that was a good experience. At the end of that, 2007 or 8, I got into this financial advising role that was not the same as what I'd been doing in Boston, but I could build on the experience of having been in the financial world. So I did that for a few years before finally getting into international teaching in 2012. And at that point, that's where my life has been from that point until now. So that's it for now. I appreciate you hanging out. If you've been here until the end, consider subscribing. I will try to be uploading at least a video a week, maybe more. So yeah, for now, Ma Yan signing out from the lovely Judy Temple. Wish you all the best and see you next time.
我跟你说啊，你今天碰到我了，上海是有可能全中国找不出第二个的。这个庙啊，我从小找庙找到现在，整个上海市我找到去了1万多座庙，这个庙一个找过去，我找到。
你住附近吗？
不是很远的。
很远啊。
昨天我路过这里，我有事没有进来，我跟他讲好，我站在门口说了，我明天早上肯定一早就过来等你相亲的。我昨天有事过来，我今天来。
那请你前面没有知道。
跟他讲嘛，帮我瞎说了。对啊，我今天过来把相亲的。你们进3根对吧
？3根，对。
我跑到哪里进1根？我是进1根香。
我在这里附近住了4年，然后
4年了对吧？
对，就是
我找到这里庙多了。
就是我第一次进来的。
这个是那里过去一点那个庙去了吧？很有名的，这里最有名的。
对。
潘龙庵。对吧？
对，也有。
那个庙你慢点忙啊。
很高兴认识你啊。
身体健康。
你也是。
一路顺风。
你也是，谢谢。